So we are recording this, just to let you know, so it will be available on our YouTube playlist in about a week after today. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Anderson. I oversee Alumni Career Services in the Tufts Career Center. Welcome to today's webinar. We have Leslie Warner from Alumni Career Services presenting today. But first, some housekeeping. We have two main goals in Tufts Alumni Career Services: to present programs like this, including webinars and workshops and other events across the country for all alumni in all schools. So please check the Alumni and Friends calendar. We have a job search webinar coming up in December, also featuring Leslie. I will paste the link to our calendar and other links that I'm going to refer to in the chat box after I finish my introduction. So for today's webinar, we'll be presenting for about 50 minutes. We'll follow that by Q&A. We'll try our best to address your questions during the session. You can type those questions into the chat box and we'll address them. If we don't get to your question, stay on the call at the end and we will take questions. We are recording this webinar to be posted on the YouTube playlist. Finally, before I introduce our speaker, I want to acknowledge that the Office of Alumni Engagement has a community values statement, and I'll post that in the chat box as well. So let me introduce our speaker today. Leslie Warner is an assistant director in Alumni Career Services with an undergraduate degree in English and a master's degree in counseling psychology. Leslie has had a variety of jobs, including helping staff at an Army base that was closing and people affected by layoffs. She learned the other side of hiring through her work as a recruiter in human resources. At Tufts, she helps alumni of all career stages manage their careers, including job search, on-the-job success, graduate school, and finding meaning and purpose at any age. She meets one-on-one with alumni from Arts and Sciences, Engineering, and the School of the Museum of Fine Arts. She enjoys designing and leading workshops and loves helping others learn strategies they can use throughout their lives. So now I'll hand the presentation over to Leslie.
Well, thank you. It's always interesting to hear yourself introduced like that. Like, oh, yes, that is me. I did do those things. Today, we're going to be talking about networking, and it's a big topic. You can't cover everything. No one can learn or cover everything about networking in a 1-hour presentation. But I'm going to highlight some strategies and tips that people have found useful, and then also resources to continue to learn, to get more detailed information about some of the topics that we won't touch on in as much detail today. So the agenda: what is networking? Why is it important? Some basic networking tools, my top 11 networking tips, just because there weren't 10, there were 11. Some information about informational interviews, what you can think about as you set your next steps, some web resources, just sites on the internet, and books, and questions and discussion. But as I said, I also encourage you to write questions into the chat, and we'll try to address them as we go along as well. So what is networking? Well, it's not asking for a job. And if you're in an active job search, sometimes there can be you can feel a little tension around that. It's a little wordy, but I love this definition from one of my favorite networking books, Make Your Contacts Count by Baber and Wayman. They say networking is the deliberate process of exchanging information, resources, support, and access in such a way as to create mutually beneficial relationships for personal and professional success. And what I love about this definition is that it also includes the personal, right? Sometimes you want to ask for the name of a dentist or advice about a place you want to go hiking in the mountains. It's not always about career. And also that word mutual benefit, seeking to help others and be of service in both directions. Okay, my down button didn't work. Just a minute. There it goes. Um, we talked about it being a reciprocal relationship, looking for ways to help the other person. If you're not sure how you can help, you ask or mention it. Please let me know how I can be helpful to you. It could be a request for information and you hope referrals, meaning, to get an introduction to someone else, you have to earn that, right? Earn their credibility and respect. And ideally, relationships build over time. So you can show your competence, show your credibility. So why is networking so important? Well, it's a confusing job market out there. And it's certainly been true for a long time that most of the information about jobs is not in the advertised jobs. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? And those of you that have been in organizations doing hiring, even if something is going to be posted on the company website or advertised out on job market websites, there's still that time lag period, right? Well, the managers and team are thinking about what do we need? What will this new position be? So that's one reason that a lot of the information is not in the advertised job. It just hasn't hit that site yet. Or the organizations are defining or figuring out their needs. They're not actively advertising for the need. Also, networking can help you achieve goals, personal goals as well as professional, right? When you're learning, when you're getting information, it's not all out there in articles on the internet, right? Or in books. Some of the information that you need is going to be learned by talking to other people, figuring out who knows, who has that information or that resource and can give you information or advice about it. The other way that networking is important is it helps you build your confidence and you gain experience as you're telling your story and continuing to learn about challenges and trends in your industry, not just for job search, but again, throughout your lifetime. So, a few networking myths. And these might be things that you're hearing in your own mind, right? We have these fears or these concerns that may come up for many people. So it's important to listen to what those voices in your head are saying when you think about networking, because then you can look for information or resources to counter that information, right? So one of the myths is it's manipulative. Well, it can be if you're not open and transparent about your agenda, right? When you tell people, I want to learn about your company because I'm interested in it, and I think I might want to work there, um, that's open, that's honest, right? Nothing manipulative about that. Another common myth is, oh, it's only for extroverts, the folks that are great at schmoozing. Well, extroverts, yes, some of them may be good at chatting to people, at initiating conversations in some cases, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're strategic or thoughtful about it, or that they're organized and thoughtful about the follow-up, right, after the conversation. So there are definitely resources that I'll recommend at the end about specifically talking about why and how building relationships, having conversations, connecting with people is not just for extroverts, and that there are introvert strengths you can draw on as well. Okay, another myth, they won't want to talk to me. Well, actually, not everybody will necessarily be able to talk to you or connect with you in the exact time frame that you might wish, but you don't know unless you ask, right? Maybe they won't want to talk to you yet, or maybe they're too busy right now, but maybe not, right? You don't know until you ask. I love this one. I tried networking, it didn't work. I would say 100% of the time when I've heard that from someone that I'm working with, what they mean is, oh, I tried talking to the 10 people I already knew, and they didn't have a job lead for me, or they didn't have the information that I wanted. Or sometimes what they tried was reaching out in one way, or reaching out to people in one dream or target company, but not talking to others. Not so there's it doesn't mean that talking to someone will instantly get you the information or the job lead that you need. It just means that those other people are the resource for information and ideas and contacts that you need. And sometimes it just takes a little more time or a different strategy. But important to pay attention to what those voices in your head are saying. Sometimes the voices in your head are saying something that's actually useful, like, oh, if the voice in your head is saying, gee, I'm going to have a networking, informational conversation with someone, but I'm not sure what questions I should ask. Well, that's useful. You go online, you can look on our website, you can look at networking books and articles to get ideas about honing what are the questions that will be most useful for you to ask. So not everything in your head is a myth, but it's important to sort those out, which things are actual information that telling you, oh, I need more information or I need a resource there, and which things are like, oh, they won't talk to me, which are usually not true. But so before we talk about tools, networking tools for events, any questions or comments coming up that are timely in the chat, Nicole?
Nothing,
Not,
nothing yet.
not yet.
Nothing yet.
Okay. Well, the first one I talk about is business cards. Now, we are in a interesting transitional point for business cards. Some industries and sectors, people may still be very much using and appreciating a business card. And in others, people don't want to don't use them either because of environmental concerns. Do you have any thoughts or updates on business cards, Nicole?
I think business cards are a great idea.
Mhm.
I was at homecoming weekend on last Saturday, and I
Mhm.
met a couple of alums who had, their their business cards on, on their phone, on their mobile.
Mhm.
Another one, I don't know if you have the online ones here, but is link.com. I'll enter that
Mhm.
in. Um,
Great.
so yes,
Link,
whatever age and
yeah,
stage. Mhm.
right. Link.com is, you're saying it's an online business card? Yeah. Yeah. So definitely great to have a way that make it easy to share your contact info. Um, Another tip for events. Now, by events, I mean really anything. It could be a social event, but most of the time when one of the tips I'm going to be talking about here are applicable to things like a professional association meeting or a conference or a business or networking group of some kind. So names are important. Learn their name, teach your name. It's nice if you can come up with a little tagline or easy way to teach someone your name. But if not, one of the things you can do is repeat their name, right? Um, oh, Nicole Anderson. Nice to meet you, Nicole. My name is Leslie Warner. And then try to use their name during your conversation. I know it's a lot to keep in mind. These are sort of the ideal tips. And a lot of this comes from Ann Baber's book, Make Your Contacts Count. So now a tagline, an identifier after your name. This is it also serves as kind of a conversation opener. So it might be, hi, I'm Leslie Warner. I'm here because I'm new in town and I want to meet more people in this industry. Or I'm Leslie Warner. I work in the marketing department. Which department are you with, right? If it's a company event, it's nice to add something because it starts to open up that next stage of the conversation. And these things really, again, the people that are really good at this, they plan it ahead of time or they have something ready that they've practiced. Not to be stilted or like a robot, but just so that you have those initial openers kind of ready. Now, this one is another one that I really love. A lot of times when you're at a professional event, conference, professional association, and in American culture, a lot of social events, people also ask, oh, what do you do? Well, most of the most common answers do not invite conversation. They are more like thud. Oh, I'm a financial analyst. Well, that can mean a lot of different things in different companies or different sectors. Or, I'm an analyst or so if you can have the what Ann Baber calls your best test. What do you do best? One thing. And the test is a testimonial to your talents. Now, this is hard to pull off. This may not be what you're ready to say as an intro, like I do such and such. And recently we got featured on the front page of the Globe business section, right? That may not flow for just introducing yourself, but you do want to keep it in mind. Perhaps it comes into a later part of the conversation. Another tip that I like here about introducing yourself, if you're in a place in your life where you hate your job, you don't have to introduce yourself saying, well, I have this job doing this, but what I really want to do is X. No, you can keep the focus on what you do want to do more of, or what you do like, what you're interested in. The other thing about talking about what you do is another way to think about it is, who do you help and what do you help them with? So back to that financial analyst information, right? I help the managers in my company have the best financial information to make decisions about the company, or I help Tufts alumni manage their careers, right? Think, who do you help and what do you help them with? Maybe your product or service helps a certain sector. So that's another way that I think is really helpful to think about introductions. There was an example in a book that I read where they talked about a young woman decided she wanted to have a jazzy, more memorable introduction. And she said, well, I sell drugs. And what she actually did was pharmaceutical sales. And after she decided I sell drugs did get people's attention, but she felt like it was too, it was too outrageous. It wasn't professional enough. So she modified it to say, I help physicians have the best information about new medications so that they can prescribe and help their patients. So that takes you can do some thinking about that too. Maybe your job title does explain who you help and what you help them with, but for most of us, the job title isn't what does it. So what do you talk about at this event or this conference where you're meeting people, or this professional association? Your agenda. You want to write some of these things down ahead of time. I know it sounds a little clunky, but it really does increase your chances of having an interesting conversation, perhaps being able to help someone else, and achieving your own goals. So before the event, write down, maybe it's a 3x5 card or a sheet of paper, whatever, or you're in your phone, whatever works for you. Write down, what can you give? What do you have to offer at this event? It could be a personal thing. You know somebody in New York who needs to sublet an apartment. It could be that a department at your company is hiring, so you know about some job opportunities. And it could also be, I had one colleague who loved ballroom dancing, and she and her husband took all these lessons and they knew a lot about it. So she put that on her give list in case anyone was interested or it came up in the conversation. She could be a resource and tell people where to find lessons or classes or dances. It wasn't that she was going to walk around at the business meeting talking about ballroom dancing all day. It was just there as an opportunity, something she knew about. I had someone else who put down on his list doing business in China, because he had been in China for a number of years and was just relocating to the States. And that's part of what he had to offer, was information about that. And what do you hope to get? You can't put down a job in PR in New York, right? That's not really a reasonable thing to look for one event, but you could put down contacts in PR in New York, or asking if someone's aware of, specialized PR resource groups or professional groups related to specific industries or to the New York area. Or maybe there's a personal area where you're looking for more information too. And the reason we say give first is seek to give first. What's their agenda, right? Oh, and before I leave this slide, I wanted to mention one of the ways you can use the agenda is as a icebreaker with other people at the event, right? You can't say, oh, what's on your agenda card? But you can say, what are you hoping to get out of this meeting? Or what brings you to this meeting? And sometimes you can literally help them. Oh, I can introduce you to that person. Or, oh, I know somebody who's here who knows about doing business in China. So top 11 networking tips, do your homework. If you can, research the people before the event who will be attending so you can plan your strategy. Now, this isn't always possible, but when there is a list of attendees that's available before the event, it's well worth your time to think about who do you want to talk to? Who do you want to connect with? Are there specific people? Are there specific types of people? If you don't have detailed information about the people, you can still, again, think about your strategy and your goals. Web to web is just a reminder about a firm handshake is still a interesting and meaningful way that people gain part of the first impression of you. We're also in a transitional etiquette with handshakes, right? These public health people write these articles saying the business handshake is gone because it transmits, flu and colds, and other people will say, no, the business handshake is back because it's part of our culture. So see what you think when you're at the event. If you're comfortable, you can always stick your hand out and offer the shake, but be ready if somebody wants to, do an elbow bump instead, or because we are in this interesting, transitional point where we're not in the high point of infections of COVID, but some people are still sensitive about handshake. We talked about introducing yourself, try to be interesting and brief. Who do you help? What do you help them with? Prepare conversation starters. Some of those are like the tagline ideas I had about, how do you relate to this event, or how do you relate to this other person? Again, it sounds hokey, but for many of us, it helps to think about, how do you start the conversations? And you can find interesting lists online of ways to start a conversation at a business meeting. Act like a host. I like this one. That means you're not pretending that you're the boss of the meeting, but if you see someone standing alone off to the side, you could go over and introduce yourself as a way to sort of try to make them feel welcome. Another way to act like a host, if you have time, if you're able to, if you come a little bit early to the meeting, it gives you a chance to get the lay of the land, offer to the event organizers to help them with something if they need some help. It's another way to sort of be more comfortable yourself at an event. Keeping it short, 5 to 8 minutes per conversation. If it's a group event like this, it's what many people recommend. You don't want to monopolize someone. You can always, again, offer to exchange business cards and say that you'd like to follow up later, if indeed you would. You don't have to follow up with everyone, but and when I say write notes about the follow-up, this is where it's really handy, whether it's online or a physical card, to jot down a note. Send her the conference notes from February or whatever you talked about that needs an action or a follow-up. Graceful exits is about how do you end those conversations. Some of us have certainly at times used the tried and true, oh, excuse me, I just want to take a little bio break. But it's not the ideal impression to leave in people's minds, right? Like, oh, I'm leaving for a bio break. You can say that you're going to get a snack or a drink. You can also, this is sort of advanced event networking, you can tell them you're going to do something on your agenda, like, oh, I really want to meet Joe so-and-so over there. Would you like to come along and meet him as well? Or perhaps you'd like to talk to others. So in other words, you can move on to your next agenda thing. Or I'd like to go speak to the speaker over there. It's been really nice speaking with you. Then follow-up is ideally you want to write a thank you note to those who offered any helpful information or resource within 24 hours. You can also follow up just to say, it was nice to meet you. Let's connect on LinkedIn. And the 11th one is, again, offering and looking for ways to help. And again, that could be, as I mentioned before, helping them with their agenda. What brings you to this event? And then there might be a way you can help them with that step that they want to take or resource they're looking for at the event. So before I jump into informational interviews, just wanted to check, Nicole, any questions coming in?
No, not yet, but a
That's
reminder
okay.
that you can post them in the chat if you have them.
Okay. So informational interview is, you may have heard about it before. Some of you may have done some of these before. It's just a conversation where you are there, you set the agenda, you're there to learn more about the industry or trends, where your skills and background might best fit in this company or in other similar ones, and hopefully build a relationship. You're looking for insight, perspective, potentially referrals, meaning an introduction to someone else that they think would be good for you to talk to. Not to say, can you hire me? You also are there to share information and resources that could be helpful to them, if appropriate, if that's going to fit into the conversation. Now, to prepare for informational interviews, one start is listing down or reviewing all of the contacts that you have personally. Could be relatives, could be friends, neighbors, and then professional, people you've worked with in the past, different organizations you might belong to, or hobbies or community groups. And the reason is, we want to be sure you take advantage of the people that actually, proximity means they actually care about you. Proximity is they care about you. Perspective is they can offer you perspective on the industry or the company or the career path that you're interested in. Power means someone who's very senior level or has a lot of influence or connections. So an example from someone I worked with is his in-laws had as a close family friend someone that was the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, very big business figure in Cleveland. And he and his wife were relocating to Cleveland to be closer to her family. And he also wanted to do at the same time a career change from high school teaching to adult corporate training. That's a lot all at once. And he knew he had this very, very powerful, door opening family friend to draw on. So we talked about, well, how was he going to do that? And where was it going to best fit into his strategy of learning and networking and getting positioned in Cleveland, when this person didn't know him at all. And anyway, so he ended up deciding to do some other informational interviews and research and professional association work in the adult training world for a bit of time before he approached Mr. Big Business Person, so that he could use his time thoughtfully. But I mentioned these different categories just to remember the people that care about you, even if they don't know anything about your target industry, right? They may be 1 degree of separation from someone that does, and they care about you and will go the extra mile for you. So you're also going to want to know your product, know yourself. What are your skills? What are your accomplishments? What are the areas you have knowledge of? Now, ideally, you'll want to know your target function, job function, target industry, but maybe you're in exploration mode. That's okay. If you're exploring, you craft the questions to help you explore and research what that target or best fit area might be. Tell me about yourself is, it might be 90 seconds, it might be up to 2 minutes where you're introducing yourself. And this is going to be a little different in a networking situation than in a job interview situation, right? In a job interview, you're really pitching that tell me about yourself to what are the most important things about you in relation to this job opportunity. But in a networking meeting, an informational interview, you're picking out what are the most important things about yourself that's going to help this person get to know you and understand what your goals might be. And again, you'll have more conversation from there. And you set the agenda. You prepare the questions, which will be different depending on what you're looking for from this conversation, where you're at in your career exploration, your career search. And as much as you can learn about the industry, the company, and this person before the meeting, the better, so that you're able to ask some more thoughtful questions. And you set a time frame and stick to it. Maybe 20 to 30 minutes. If you signal at 25 minutes that you're coming near to the end of the time that you had asked for, if they say, oh no, I scheduled more time, do you have more questions? Well, if you do, that's okay. If they twist your arm, you can stay longer. And the thank you or follow-up email is very important. It really helps continue to build that relationship and that impression, especially if it's a new contact. For example, one of the resources we haven't talked about yet is Tufts alumni. In addition to those friends and former coworkers, Tufts alumni might be a complete stranger, but because you both went to Tufts, there's a sense of a shared connection to some degree. And so when you send the thank you follow-up email, you are saying you heard what they said. Here's what I plan to do with the introductions or resources or information or ideas you shared. And sometimes they hit reply and send you more contacts or more information or resources or ideas, right? Now, you'll see some books or some articles that talk about the value of a handwritten card. Handwritten note cards do stand out, but I wouldn't only do this is my personal opinion, is I wouldn't only do a handwritten note card because you want it to be easy for them to hit reply and answer. But you might send that handwritten card for a special occasion, follow up with a holiday greeting, or a sort of extra appreciation or thank you. You use your judgment about what you think fits. Now, the advanced follow-up, I call this sort of post-grad advanced networking. You're going to keep a networking tracking sheet, especially if you're having a number of these conversations. People sometimes say to me, oh, I'm keeping track in my Gmail. Really, that's very hard to do if you talk to more than 2 people, because you want to be sure you know when did you speak to them, and then when did you write with that thank you, and then if they gave you, say, they recommended a book and a conference you should check out and gave you the name of a person to talk to. Well, each time you take one of those follow-up actions, you can send them another thank you email. Thanks again for meeting with me in August, where we talked about such and such. You suggested that I check out the such and such conference, and you tell them what happened when you checked out that conference. I had a wonderful young engineer on one of these calls once who asked, what's the precise maximum number of these follow-up thank yous you should send each week? And I had to really stop and think. And I said, well, definitely more than one a week is going to be too many. Once a week, but see if you can get a feel for what you think the relationship would benefit from. But have those follow-up thank yous. They really do mean something to people. People like knowing what happened with the information they shared. Not everything is a big, yay, I got the job, right? You could check out a conference and maybe you can't attend the conference, but you get an idea or a lead or a new company to check out by looking at the conference proceedings or information. And this last part is important too. Seek to help. You can always say in your thank you email, please let me know how I can be helpful to you. But you can also be scanning mentally for what information or resource or idea might be helpful to them. And it might be based on something personal you talked about, a vacation that they're planning or having coming up, or it might be that you look for an article or a resource, what I call the non-obvious article, like it's not from the New York Times last week, but maybe it's from a professional journal or trade journal or the business press, but not last week, but that's related to something that's on their desk, a trend in their industry or company. And if you have this spreadsheet that you're keeping of the people that you're talking to, you may come across an article or a resource where you think, oh, I could send that to 3 people on my list here, right? And then keep track of the date that you sent that article or resource. Another way that you can be helpful to people is telling them about events, a professional event, maybe a Tufts alumni event, right? That doesn't have to be focused on their industry or their career field, although it might be. And the way you can do that is a couple of ways. If you're able to attend the event, and this can be with any event, it doesn't have to be a Tufts event. I'm just using that as one example. You can write to the person that you had the networking meeting with and say, oh, I notice a such and such meeting is coming up. I'm planning to attend. If you're planning to attend also, and here's where you can think about what you'd like to offer. Do you want to say, would you like to meet up for coffee beforehand? Or would you like to connect? I look forward to connecting at the event if you're able to attend, right? You can even send someone an event info if you really think they might be interested and say, I'm not able to attend this event, but I wanted to forward the invite to you because it looked like something you might be interested in, right? You can use it in different ways as a resource or as a way to reconnect or meet up again. So how do you find these people to network with? Well, we talked about your friends, not neglecting friends, relatives, your own personal contacts as a place to start, but also LinkedIn. We don't have time to say everything that could be said by any means about networking on LinkedIn, except that it really is the professional business networking connector for most industries, most people in the US. Some other countries use some other platforms at times. So if you're networking in other countries, you can do your research, check to see what online platforms might be used in addition to LinkedIn in other countries, although it definitely is international and is very widely used. And you can use it in a variety of ways. And part of it is just research, right? What are people doing? What are people in certain companies or industries doing? What do their profiles say about what they're doing? But you can also use it to search directly for Tufts alumni, right? Who may be strangers to you, but you have that connection. And request I wouldn't say informational interview because not everybody uses that language, but ask if you could have a short conversation with them about their career, their company, right? But you can also look for people that aren't necessarily Tufts alums that might be what we call a second degree connection, where someone might be able to introduce you, right? So for more information about LinkedIn and LinkedIn networking, we definitely have some information on our Tufts Career Center website. There are also, we have a webinar that's more focused on building your LinkedIn profile. It's called Rock Your Profile. And you can find that on YouTube as well. I believe that one, Nicole, is in the student channel though, right?
I believe it is too. So I'll post the Career
Yeah.
Center playlist.
Right. Career Center playlist has Rock Your Profile. So I say LinkedIn, as I said, is great as a resource to find people, learn about what different people are doing and reach out to Tufts alums or others in your network or second degree where you ask for an introduction from the person that you know. But there may be other social media platforms that are important to you personally or in your target career field, right? I mean, is Facebook personal or professional? Can be both, can be one or the other. Twitter, of course, now has a new name, X. Some people are connecting with the brands or the companies they care about through Instagram. Is that exactly online networking? Well, it depends, but find out what's happening with your industry, your area, and which platforms or ways of connecting with people online are people using in your area. Do you have other comments for this topic, Nicole, or other thoughts?
So I actually posted, I don't expect you to read all my chats, Leslie, but
Yeah.
the Alumni Engagement Office has a page on all of these shared interest groups and chapters, and there are so many. There are
Oh, thank you,
identity-based,
Nicole. Thank you for that reminder.
yeah, the identity-based groups, the professional networks. For example, like the Tufts Lawyers Association, the Tufts Environmental Network, Tufts Social Impact Network. There are regional and international chapters. Amazing. I mean, where we have people across the country and around the world. So I put a link there, and many of those link to those groups, LinkedIn groups, as well as if they have a Facebook group, and then a calendar of their events. So
yes, thank you for that reminder. Exactly. There may be a Tufts alumni group that relates to your career field of interest, or it may be, as she said, a geographical group based on the city you live in or the city you're moving to, which can be so helpful, right? Either with a Facebook group, a LinkedIn group, or actual events.
we do have a good question that was posted,
Great.
Leslie.
Great.
So this is more of a networking or conference scenario. If there are multiple people from a company that you're interested in, is it important to meet all of them? For example, if there are 3 or 4 people from a company at like a networking event.
That is such a great question. And I mean, if it's a company you're really interested in and you're able to meet all of those 3 or 4 people from that company at the conference, that's great. But on the other hand, you're also balancing that with, and sometimes these company people will hang out together in a bit of a group, which can make it easier for you, right? Although I'm smiling because that's not really best practice. Best practice for going to a conference is to try to not clump together with your coworkers all the time. But you're also balancing that with your other networking goals for that conference. Maybe you want to be sure to meet people at a couple of other companies too, or maybe you are looking to meet people in specific, functional areas. So that might involve talking to some other folks too. So it's a great question, and it would be yes, it's great to meet all of those people if you can, but there's another great conference follow-up tip, which is if you don't get to connect with someone physically, have a conversation at the conference, but you're able to have the conference proceedings or list of attendees, you can follow up afterwards. Literally reach out and say, oh, I was hoping to get a chance to talk with you at the such and such conference, which we both attended. I'd love to learn more about X. Would you like to set up a short call? So we could blah, blah. So definitely. Thanks, Nicole. Any other questions Not right now? Okay. So before we jump into the next steps, I wanted to say a little more about my experience with hearing from so many people who feel hesitant if they haven't done this kind of reaching out to people, networking before, and they haven't reached out, especially reaching out to people that they don't know, like a Tufts alum that they don't know. Many people feel that hesitancy or not being sure how it will go. And what I really encourage you to do is just try it. And you don't start with the person that is the CEO or owns the Cleveland Cavaliers necessarily. You start with peers or near peers, people in the doing the kind of work you think you'd like to do, or if you're not sure what your goal is, people that are doing something that sounds interesting that you want to learn more about. And again, when you're not sure what to say or how to approach it, you look for articles or guides online, which can give you some good advice to get started. And remembering that the other thing that I like to remind people about in terms of information resource is don't prejudge who you think will be the most helpful or the most strategic. Um, True stories that I can share. One is a client of a colleague of mine where she was sort of mid-level person in the business world, and she was laid off and she wasn't happy about it. She was kind of embarrassed about it, even though it happens to all of us. It happens, it's a very common, normalized thing now. But she was a little embarrassed. So she was home working in her garden, and her oil truck delivery person came up, and he had been delivering her oil for a long time. And he's like, "Oh, Miss So and so, how come you're home? You're usually out at the big job." And he was very chatty. And he drew it out of her, even though she was shy about sharing it, that she was laid off and that she was, and he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And she told him, and he said, "Well, like what kind of companies?" And she told him a company, and he said, "My daughter's the head of HR at that company." He said, "Give me your resume. I'm going to see her tonight." So he gave him her resume, and he drove it over in the oil truck, or maybe he was driving a different truck by that time. And long story, she did end up getting hired at that company. Normally we don't recommend targeting the head of HR unless you want to work in HR. Normally we're talking about targeting people doing the work you want to do, managers and people on the teams you'd like to be on. But in this case, and one reason I like that story is, she first of all, she was embarrassed to talk about her situation, which we hope you can not be, and be able to find positive ways to talk about what I'm looking for now is da, da, da. And secondly, you don't prejudge who's going to have the contact or the resource or the information that might be helpful to you. Another similar story was, again, a client of a friend of mine who he was riding a ferry to get to, I think, Martha's Vineyard or Block Island, one of the New England islands. And he had also been recently laid off. And the ferry worker, person that puts the rope on and off and shuts the gate and waves the cars in, he recognized the guy and was chatting with him, and he drew him out. And he said, "Well," and he said, "Well, where where do you want to work?" And he said, "Such and such." And he goes, "Oh, Mary so and so from that company, she rides this ferry too. I think she's here today." And the ferry worker introduced the guy to the other person who he didn't know, and he did end up working there. You So part of what I love about these stories is just reminding us that, to be ready to share your story, have your question ready, your agenda ready in whatever form is appropriate to the setting you're in, and to be and to not prejudge who's going to have what resource or what information. So setting goals, what is your next step? You definitely need a tell me about yourself, a way to introduce yourself in that one-on-one meeting that you feel comfortable with, that fits the situation. Clarify your agenda. That's when you're going to a gathering or a group or a professional meeting or even a party, right? Not to be heavy hitting the social gathering with your your business agenda, but just to know, what's your situation? What are you curious about? What are you hoping to learn? What do you have to share or be interested in to share with others? And here's one that we haven't talked about before, but this is so great. Be visible. When you're in a group, seek out leadership roles. So for example, and it doesn't have to be standing up at the podium being in charge, right? Maybe you like to write or work behind the scenes. But when you check out the professional associations in your area, what's really terrific is if you can identify one to get more involved in. Maybe one or two others you attend now and then, or you check out. But if there's one you can be more involved in, you can join a committee, you can chair a committee, right? And then that's natural networking, right? People will know you and trust you, and build your relationships through just doing some work in that professional association. The same thing goes with groups in your community, which might not be so focused or targeted towards your profession or your job role. But if there are things you care about in your community, again, if you're actively involved, you're showing up, and you're able to chair a project or lead a project, again, that builds relationship, builds your reputation. Those are more longer term strategies. Most of us don't get that hot job lead by showing up to one professional association meeting, although it can happen. Some of the books that I've mentioned, the Ann Baber and Lynn Wayman, Make Your Contacts Count and Strategic Connections, those are more about sort of networking as life strategies for learning, for sharing, for growing your career. You, Me, You, sort of an awkward title, but Jane Matson is a local career coach who I've known for many years, and she published this book in the last couple of years. And it's a small book, but very much about the art of conversation. Building a conversation, starting a conversation with new people, and then developing relationships through there. I mentioned the Ultimate Job Search Guide just because job search books, if they're good and you can browse in the library or on Amazon, but library is nice because you can look through it a little more easily. Look for a solid chapter on the hidden job market or networking for your job search, right? Where you're having those conversations with alumni or with people from your professional association and others to get feedback and advice about who might be hiring, right? Where the needs might be coming along. So those books can be very helpful. The Introvert Advantage and Why Should Extroverts Make All the Money? Sometimes, and A Foot in the Door. A Foot in the Door is about informational interviewing, like we've been talking about. It's out of print, but it's an old school classic, which you can find in libraries often. But you can also look for books and articles that target what you're hoping to learn, whether that's questions, how do you set up and organize an informational interview, or how do you follow up with this one, like here, the Muse article, Keep Your Network from Growing Cold. It's ways to follow up and continue to build these relationships. And as Nicole mentioned, the alumni association groups and resources for different alumni in different locations, different geographies. So what I think that's, oh yeah. And we hadn't talked yet about the Herd. The Herd is a dedicated resource for networking with students and alumni to have career conversations. And you can search it by major. We hope you'll be a volunteer and be available to others, but for yourself as well, you can search by major, you can search by company, by keyword. Any other thoughts to add on the Herd, Nicole?
So a reminder that the Herd is for alumni and students from the schools of arts and sciences, engineering, and the School of the Museum of Fine Arts.
Thank you.
But all of the schools have their own platform or group. It just depends. You need to go, I posted in the chat, the list of career centers by school. So they all have something. But since Arts and Sciences, Engineering, SMFA are the largest, we thought we would mention this one today.
Great. Thank you. And the Tufts Career Networking group on LinkedIn, again, sometimes people post questions or job leads or events to the Career Networking group. And Tufts Online Community is run by the Alumni Office and has an alumni directory plus access to library databases. Although I will say many public libraries also have library databases, which are things like you can find articles from the Business and Trade Press. It's like the most helpful, I'd say. So we talked about get some feedback on that introduction. How are you introducing yourself? Like the young woman who said she sold drugs, right? We want her to get the feedback that that's a little too out there for most professional business circumstances. Some people find it really helpful to have like an action team or a friend to really set specific goals and support each other in those goals, whether that's a job change, a career change, or just being more intentional with some of your networking actions. And I say more information to increase confidence. That's where I'm talking about. Look for a book or an article if you're not sure how to get started or how to do some of these things effectively. And I know it can seem a little overwhelming when I list all the 10 things you can do with LinkedIn, with alumni networking, with follow up later, with joining all these groups and being in a professional association. It can seem like a lot, but really, if you start from where you are and even take a couple of small steps, such as joining LinkedIn groups that relate to your professional interests, your industry, your job function, right? You can always decide, which of the groups are helpful, which ones do you want to receive all the LinkedIn notifications from, but taking small actions to start with really is the way to go. So questions to add here?
So no other questions. I think we've had a few. I posted many resources. Here's a question. I knew I would get asked this question. So all of the resources that I just posted, some of them overlap with Leslie's, but some of them certainly weren't in the presentation. We will send all of these to you via email within the week. So, and then another, could we have your emails if we have further questions? So I can give you my email, and then, Leslie's coaching all day long, but I can, sort of address questions that people have directly. Happy to do that.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Leslie, for leading this very practical webinar. And again, the webinar will be posted to our YouTube channel within the week. So
thank you, Nicole.
Right.